Hello, welcome to Image Bearers. My name is Atoma Eji. I'm super excited to have on the program today Yong Wood, who is an awesome disciple from Texas. So today we get a chance to learn about his life, and he's also going to share some great things about Asian American heritage to really just help us get more well-rounded and become more culturally competent. So welcome, Yong, to the program.
Welcome, Young.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Amen. Well, let's go ahead and kick it off. Jaime, you want to start us out?
Amen. So I would like to just share a little bit about myself and how God brought me here. So, with that being said, I was baptized in a city in in a place called Lubbock, Texas, and so that place is very special to me. Not only is it my hometown, it's the place where I was baptized in the Lubbock, what's now called the Lubbock Mission Church, and it's led by Roddy Oakes there and his wife Mary. But before that, a disciple who baptized me, his name was Joe Ugorji. And little fun fact about Lubbock, Texas, is the church was originally planted in Lubbock, Texas, because of Young. And so, if it hadn't been for Young, I mean, he just helped get the church planted there sooner than later, I'm sure. But if it hadn't been for him, I would say I would not be around here today. I would not be a disciple. I would not be worshiping God the way I did if Young's impact hadn't been needed and felt and just provided there. And so, I was born again in 2001, baptized in August of 2001. And by that time, the church was already there I mean, it wasn't there for very long, but all I could hear about were stories about Young and uh, his rebirth and the reason for the church to be planted there. Like he was mentioned so many times, and so um, I've I'm glad for Facebook because I could follow him and I could connect with him more and see what he's doing. But so it's kind of a starry-eyed dream right now, looking at Young and thinking I'm on the same screen with him. This brother, the reason I'm even here is because of the need to encourage him in Lubbock while he was going to school there. Um, I'm sorry, and I'm just all over the place because it's just like this is awesome. For y'all don't know, this is like when you meet your spiritual, um, the spiritual star. That guy who you're always encouraged by. It's like this is Young. This is amazing. Like I got goosebumps on me right now because the stories heard from him, the outreach that has occurred because of him, because God used him to do so much work in Lubbock. I met my wife in Lubbock. I had my first child in Lubbock. I've brought people to church, and there are brothers and sisters who are practicing disciples there in Lubbock who I baptized, but all because Young was the first. Young was the first brother who needed to, that was the church was needed there. So we'll get into more of that later. But I live up here in Illinois now with my family, and I have two daughters, and go to the Bloomington Church of Christ up here. And so, I mean, yeah. I think that's all I kind of want to share, if that's okay, so we can kind of move through. But uh, not Atoma. Young, you work in immigration, right?
So just to cut real quick. So, Young, can
Oh,
you share a little bit about yourself and also what brought you into his kingdom?
oh, sure. So, oh, Young, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
absolutely. Absolutely. So God has definitely been working on me for quite some time. I was exposed to our fellowship of churches, the kingdom here, actually in high school. That's when my parents became disciples. However, I was already very deep in sin and really in love with the world. So I didn't want anything to do with the church. I really thought the church, I'm going to be quite open here, was kind of strange and just a bunch of Bible beaters. Even in fact, when my mom got baptized, I didn't even want to observe that. I kind of bailed on it. I did not want to be part of that. So I go off to college, UT in Austin, and having a good time there. And the Dallas church decided to plant a church in Austin. I just thought, how in the world? I can't get away from these people. I can't get away from the church. So they plant this church in Austin, one of our churches, and obviously my parents were just bugging me, go to the first service, go to the first service. So I went, because they actually came down, got a hotel because I wouldn't let them stay at my apartment. They came down, got a hotel, and dragged me to the first service. The first service, I will acknowledge, it was very impactful. I think it was Todd Spath gave a testimony, and I could relate to his story, a lot of the stuff from the world, and I was like, wow, this is cool. But I wasn't ready to surrender. I didn't want anything to do with God. But I remember Brian Akins and Joe Ugorji. They were reaching out to me like you wouldn't believe, right? I mean, they kept continuing. I would ignore them. I would ignore them. So I was just going on with my life in college at UT and partying and doing all this, just sinful things. And one night, after drinking and getting a good buzz, I went to go to the local convenience store to get some more beer. And I run into Joe Ugorji and Brian Akins. And I remember thinking, wow, God, what are you trying to do? I mean, it's like, how do I randomly run into these people? They're reaching out to me. They're trying to connect. Of course, I blew them off again. My last year of undergrad, I'd already been, my last semester actually of undergrad, I'd been accepted to law school to go to tech. So essentially, I just needed to graduate, get my degree, and move. And in my pride, I took a aerospace engineering class. I was a government major, but I did well in school, and that was kind of a license. I used my grades as a license to get away with things, get in trouble, and still get away with it. Well, my last semester, in my arrogance and pride, I took aerospace engineering. I thought it would be about rocket ships, when it turned out it was about a bunch of formulas and things that was over my head. And I remember going into this class, a dark room, about 14 individuals, and I thought, wow, I probably should drop this. But in my pride, I said I could take this. It was on a pass-fail basis. All I needed to do was pass. Going into the final exam, I needed like a 60 in order to pass. And I thought I can achieve that. I take the test, and back then you could get your grades over the phone. And so you would call, and it got to that class and it said F as in Frank. And I'm thinking, what? No. This was a Monday, and I was supposed to walk the stage Saturday. I said, this can't be happening. So I remember I was hungover. It was hot. I walked all the way to the campus. I go to the actual aerospace engineering building. It's a very tiny building. I'll never forget it. I've shown my family, my kids, because a miracle actually occurred there. So I go and I see, and it's actually F as in fail. I failed the class. I started panicking. I needed my degree, obviously, to continue my studies in law school. I called the TA. I said, this can't be happening. You don't understand. I've already been accepted to law school. I need to get my degree. Where's the professor? And the TA advised me the professor had already left for summer break. So I had a foundation with God because of my parents. They were disciples since I was in high school. So I always believed in God. So I remember it was a Wednesday night. I just started praying. It's like, God, I need your help. Help me. Help. I just got on my knees and prayed. That following day, Thursday. Now keep in mind, I was supposed to walk the stage that Saturday. I didn't tell my parents about any of this. That Thursday, the TA calls me and tells me, okay, the dean of the aerospace engineering will meet with you. The dean of the aerospace engineering. I have nothing to do with this department. I was liberal arts. And I will never forget, we were sitting in this round table in this small aerospace engineering building. It was me, the dean, and the TA. And I just started crying, telling him my story. I said, you don't understand. It's my goal to go to law school. I am going to take over my dad's law practice. I have everything lined up. And so the dean told me, okay, I'm going to give you the book. I'm going to give you an hour to study. I'm going to give you another test, and you just have to get 7 right. And I remember thinking, how in the world? I mean, I just crammed for the previous exam. I couldn't even get a 60. There's no way. So I remember thumbing through the book. It's all these formulas, math formulas. I didn't know what was going on. I took the exam. I went outside, I sat on this ledge, and I'll never forget just praying and praying. And the TA came down and said, thumbs up. Gave me a thumbs up. He said, go see the dean. I went up, and somehow I got 70. And I knew right then God was trying to get my attention, because that to me was there. How did that happen, right? And so I walked the stage. I graduated, went off to law school. And I remember thinking, okay, God, you bailed me out. You made it clear how much you love me. I need to at least stop this behavior with partying, and I was into substance abuse, a lot of things, right? And I remember thinking, I'm going to Lubbock. This is a small town. This is not like Austin. I'm not going to fall into this. Well, as soon as I get there, somehow, I don't know what it is. I remember joking with people. I must have a shirt that says, I love to party. Come with me. Because I attracted the same type of individuals. And in law school, I engaged in the same behavior, even in law school, but I continued to do well in school. And that was my license. So I did well in school. Well, into my third year, this is when everything, God just humbled me to the point where I could not continue my life. I started having these health issues. And this was in the middle of law school. And I would go to these doctors. They would run batteries of tests, and they would all indicate that I was fine. Everything was fine, but I know I wasn't fine. Um, I had one doctor, though, that told me that because of my substance abuse early on and the amount, that I was having issues, and there was various issues. Well, my third year of law school, I continued to push on. I didn't want to surrender to God. It was my third year of law school. In a state that I was in, I was so delirious. In the tiny town of Lubbock, I moved three times in 1 month. In 1 month, I moved three times because of my abuse, substance abuse, and just my mindset. I was just so out there. I was so delirious. The last place I lived, in an apartment complex, I couldn't sleep. I walked across the street. This is totally God. I walked across the street in the middle of the day, knock on this guy's house because he had a for sale sign. I knock on his house. Brett Nichols saved my life. He was a man in his 90s, lived by himself. In my state of delirious state, I asked, can I come to your house and just sleep at night? And he allows me in his house. And the first thing he asked was, do you go to church? And I was like, no, I don't go to church. My parents do, but what does that have to do with anything, right? And he said, well, you should go to church. And he just wanted my number. He said, I want to talk to my daughter. She was in her 60s, and I'll let you know. So I proceeded back to walk to my apartment. And I snapped out of it. I said, Young, are you serious? You randomly knocked on this guy's house. You asked him to stay just to come over and sleep. Are you thinking he's going to allow you to stay? So I said, God, if this guy allows me to stay, I will go to church with him. So I go back. He calls. And like 10 minutes later, he calls and says, come back. My daughter wants to meet you. So I go back. The daughter just wanted to see my driver's license and said, okay, you come back. You can come stay at night. And I remember thinking, God, what in the world? You really want me to go to church with this guy? So I remember one night just sitting there in his house. He'd go to bed, around 9. And I'm thinking, I could rob this guy. There's just so much going on. God, you're making it too clear. So I went to church with him. He went to a traditional Church of Christ, or called Sunset Church of Christ. And he liked to go to the Bible school. And I went to the Bible school, and I remember the message as clear as day. Surrender to Jesus. Surrender to Jesus. He will relieve you of your suffering. And I was suffering. On the outside, it looked great. They called me social king. I was a social king in law school. I loved to party, have a good time. I was close to graduating. Things looked great. But inside, I was so empty. I was hurting. I was killing myself, literally killing myself. So I went to church with him. I started reading the Bible on my own. I called my mom, explained to her what was going on, and she just started crying. And of course, she's a disciple with our church, and said, why don't you come? We're having a big conference in September. So I went to the conference, and I was just blown away. I felt as though God had humbled me to a point where my heart was so soft. My heart was just broken. I was crushed as a man, and I knew there was more to life. I needed more. And so I decided, it was my third year of law school, to withdraw from law school, address my life, my health, get right with God. So I eventually studied the Bible, got baptized October 1998. And so at that point, I got baptized October 1998. I wanted to share my testimony. I remember I wanted to share my testimony, and I wanted to share it to as many people as possible. That was my number one objective. I want to share it to as many people as possible. So we had a congregational, and at that time our church was about 1,200. I didn't realize how big our church was, but I went forward. I shared my testimony, and after I shared, the lead evangelist at the time, Nick Young, no one knew this. He just went up and said, we're going to send a mission team back with Yong Wood when he goes back to school.
Wow.
Nobody knew this. After the fact, I talked to him because I was shocked. My parents were shocked. We're like, what, where did this come from? He just said he felt the Holy Spirit moving. When I was sharing my testimony, he said he felt the Holy Spirit moving, and he wanted to plant this church. So we planted. So that was, I shared my testimony November 98. Then we planted the church January 1999. And I will forever be grateful, because Joey Gorgie, I mean, to me, he's one of my spiritual heroes. He was my first discipler. I look back and I think, wow, I learned so much from him. I mean, I was a young, 3 months old, very wild, had a lot of zeal, but lacked knowledge. And I didn't have the best self-control, even as a disciple, even if I had a good heart. And so he was just able to rein me in, make sure that I was focused. And I'll ever be forever grateful to Joe Ugorji. And just that, even though I was only there for a year, just to see the family, all the disciples and the unity and just how we were working as a team. And that Lubbock will always hold a special place in my heart. And I was very encouraged. I was able to go to the 20-year reunion. It was exciting to just see everything. And I'm grateful for everyone that's been a part of Lubbock Church, everyone that's sacrificed, everyone that's been baptized there. I feel like for me, it will always be an encouragement and it'll hold a special place in my heart. So that's how I became a disciple.
That's awesome, man. That's so awesome hearing your story from you. Like, that's just amazing. There are always those weird like chills that you get whenever you hear people's stories, and you're just thinking, like when you're talking about going across the street to someone's house, and I'm just like, who does that? Who does that? But because of that, because of your humility, like you were blessed immeasurably through that, and it continued. The blessings continue to happen to you.
No, you're right. I wonder if I never walked and knocked on Brett Nichols' door, I might be dead. I was in such a horrible place. I mean, think about how delirious I had to be to, in the middle of the day, go walk and knock on someone's door and say, "Hey, can I just come to your house and sleep at night?" I mean, think if someone did that, came to your house, in an hour or two and said, "Hey, I live across the street. Can I come to your house to sleep?" Right? You'd be like, "What in the world is going on?" And so he allowed me in, and I think about it and think, wow, if it wasn't for him, I might not even be alive. And like you said, I don't see where my life could have any type of success or fulfillment with that one moment in time.
That's so amazing. But your story sort of doesn't stop there, right? You, as I was asking earlier, you work in immigration right now. So part of the ending to your original story is, yeah, you did finish law school. You ended up going back and finishing law school, right?
Correct.
And now that you work in immigration, tell us how things are going there, and what is it that you appreciate about that? What moved you to go in that direction? I've never known this part.
So my dad was actually an immigration attorney as well. And I took over his practice. Now, everything was expedited because he had passed prematurely. But when I started working for him, he had actually been practicing close to 25 years, not all in immigration, but practicing law. And so I would say a good 20 years, he had already been practicing immigration law. So I was working with him, but then he got cancer, and then he passed in 2001. So everything was expedited, and it was, wow. I mean, I was drinking through a fire hose, really. But I see even with that, how God protected me and guided me. And I'd look at some cases and I think, wow, God, you really directed me, because honestly, early on, there was a lot of things where I look back, I was just naive, right? You're a young attorney. You're thinking this will work, especially in the court setting when you're litigating cases. But God just would intervene. I remember one case I'll never forget. I actually inherited this case from my father. He started it, but then he passed. Immigration initially denied this lady's case. And I understand she had some issues from her past, but it was due to the abusive husband. So a lot of her transgressions was, in my opinion, were a result of the abusive husband. But immigration didn't want to see that. They wanted to blame her for everything. And then they sent her to court, and the judge initially didn't want to see that. And I'll never forget, it was totally from God. After the judge initially denied, I woke up in the middle of the night just with this thought. It was from God. File this motion, try this motion. We filed it. It worked. And I remember thinking, wow, God, you totally intervened here. And this is one of the early cases, and I'll never forget it because she was a single lady, a victim of domestic violence. She was an older lady. Her name was Grace. I'll never forget her name because she needed that grace. And she was from Nigeria. She raised 3 incredible young women. And I'll never forget the ending. I wish I could relive the ending again because I was a young attorney. That was my first that was a very challenging case, and we won. We got the decision we wanted, and I remember they were all crying and we were all hugging. And I was a young attorney, so I wanted to look stern and not show emotion. I remember just holding in. I wanted to cry, right? But I didn't want to because I wanted to show like, oh no, I'm a tough, stern attorney. But now if that happens, I cry. I've been doing this for 21 years, so I remember that case. But that's kind of the springboard for the following 21 years. I think, in fact, there's just to be open with you guys, the last couple of weeks, my wife and I have been discussing what's going to happen from this point forward. I've been doing this 21 years. I'm very grateful. I feel that I have been able to help many people. But at some point, I've got to decide, okay, am I going to continue at the level I'm working? And I think my wife and I decided, obviously I'm going to continue to practice. God willing, I have 10 more good years. But I think I might be more selective with the type of cases. And it was interesting how God really brought that to my attention because I'm the type of person that really gets invested with my cases. I know you learn in law school, you don't want to get emotionally connected, you don't want to get so involved with your clients, but we're disciples, and sometimes it's hard to distinguish that. So I know I really take things on, and this past few weeks I realized, I'm getting older. I'll be 48, and I can't do as much, and so I want to make sure that I'm actually helping my clients, not hurting them. So I've decided, okay, I know I've been doing this long enough. I know the fact patterns. I see the issues. I can foresee, okay, this might be a roadblock. There might be some issues here. So I'm going to be more selective. I think there's plenty of attorneys, right, that are either younger than me, new. It's time for them to have some cases. But I'm still obviously going to practice. I think the thing for me is I enjoy the reaction of my clients, right? I think for me, I've done this, for some time.
Yeah.
And so it's not as fresh, right? Now, some cases, they're so difficult that you just, wow, you can't even express how excited you are and joyful for your clients. But when I see my clients, their reaction that, wow, they get to live here, that they can actually try and pursue their dreams here, and just they see their life just transform and what they can achieve here. And that impacts me. And that just reminds me, wow, you know what? I've got to continue and help as much as I can, even though I might be more selective. I mean, even just to share a case this week I went to court to research and look into, I see how I can make a significant difference just in this one person's life because they had another attorney. We saw that the other attorney did not do their job properly. There are deadlines that were missed, and now we have to go back and fix this. Otherwise, he could be deported. And so we gotta. I see, and I talked to my wife. There are cases they do pull on my heart, and I realize, okay, God has given me a gift. God has given me this talent, and I've got to make sure I continue to use it. I got to make sure that if I see that I can help this person, I've got to make sure I use that talent.
So, one of the things as you're speaking, one of the things that keeps coming to my mind, Young, is it's one of the reasons that I visit your Facebook page so often is because when I see what you're talking about now, I feel like I'm getting two parts of it, right? It's you saying you want to change how you're going to be practicing law in the next decade kind of thing. And that totally makes sense. From my perspective, there's no judgment on that because if you've put the 20 years into it, I think it always makes sense to ask yourself what you want to do for the next 10 years, what you want to do for the rest. So no there, but I go to your page and I see the impact because the pictures that you post from your clients and you on their face and all the little gifts that they bring you. It's what I mean. It's always a treat to see. It's like, these are real people. So when you talk about this, when you're talking about, people who might be deported and things like that, people who get to stay and follow their dreams now without fear of whatever, I don't want to say baggage, but what their past, what their path before what they came out of, like they don't need that to follow them here. And I see how you're helping people, those realities become those dreams becoming a reality here, and the light on their faces and their gratitude that they express to you through those tokens that they bring to you. It's just like,
Hmm.
man, you know what I mean? Like I hear what you're saying, so it's cool hearing your part, but then seeing those photos that represent the work that you've done, the gratefulness that the people have towards what you have helped them do or and be, it's just like, man, dude, you're a true stud to me, man. Let me tell you, okay?
I
So
appreciate
more
that. I appreciate
more
it.
power to you as you decide whatever finalized plans that you are going to be making for the future, whatever you and your wife speak about on what's decided. I have no doubt that the selective process that you'll use is still going to benefit people and it's still going to fulfill you as well. So more power to you.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, my goal is definitely to practice at least 10 more years. We definitely want to be wise with the type of cases, how many cases, and so like you
Yeah.
said, I'm grateful. I know another thing that encourages me when I actually run into clients out in the public and they share about what's going on, because I randomly run into clients, and then because sometimes I will admit you lose sight of, wow, what are they doing? What's the impact? Unless they stay in contact, I don't know. And so when you hear their stories, you're just like, wow, look at what they're doing. Look at the impact they're making. They've opened up this business, or their child is going to medical school, and I just get blown away.
Yeah. And if you guys are watching, like, it, it's one thing. Again, you hear stories or you see whatever, but like when you see someone like Young and you see his clients, and like I've felt like I've seen those people on your Facebook page, the people whose kids are now, you helped out 20 years ago or whatever, and they have children going to college for something, and I've seen the ones who have opened the business and they brought you back a little bit of what they make at their business, and it's like, this is great. You're like, I've never tried this food before, but they brought it to me. I tried it. Oh my gosh, it's the greatest stuff. And
I
so
Hmm.
think
you
it also
guys,
leads to a great appreciation of being an American citizen when you see people that are, in a sense, so desperate in some ways to come to America. I think it lends to it just a huge appreciation. So thank you. You want to take it away, Karina?
Yes. Hi, I'm Karina Warner, and Young, you know me. I live 5 minutes from your home, or less than that. And I have another question for you. As we close out Asian American Heritage Month, what are some lessons you can share with us regarding Asian American impact in building our country? Also, any Asian American history that stands out to you?
Absolutely. I think just for me, what I observe is I don't think everyone fully understands the impact that Asian Americans have had on our country. I mean, they've made
Mhm.
significant contributions in all fields, all areas, whether it's science, the arts, technology, medicine, law. And I would encourage everyone to really look into that because, the stereotype is Asian Americans are quiet, they're kind of reserved, and to a degree, yes, but that doesn't mean they haven't made contributions. And so I want to just highlight a few individuals that stick out to me,
Okay.
that have made significant impacts. So we have one Asian American back in the 40s and 50s, and they were in the field of atomic science. And I don't know if you
Hmm.
guys are aware of the Manhattan Project, right, where
Mm-hmm.
they were researching atomic weapons, right? And so an Asian American was instrumental in that research. I think most people don't even know that, right?
Mm-mm.
So that's an area where, to me, it fascinates me to think, wow, an Asian American with atomic weapons in the United States.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So, so that's one. Another one, another Asian American helped form the United Farm Workers, right? A labor union that helped to increase wages and improve working conditions for farm workers. So that's an Asian American that helped create that. Also, you have another Asian American who was a civil rights activist who helped um, foster this idea, the environment of civil rights, even with Asians. So in 1998, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Civil Liberties Act. Ronald Reagan signed that. Well, Asian American was instrumental with that, getting reparations for during the encampment of the Japanese. You guys
Mm-hmm.
are aware of that, right? So,
Yeah.
yes, civil rights activists, Asian Americans, even in psychology, there's this subset of psychology, ethnic practice of psychology. They focus on racial, ethnic, minority individuals and groups. Asian American, very influential. Also, we know that YouTube co-founder was Asian American.
Mm.
Um, and last, this is for me, when I deal with sexual abuse survivors, an Asian American, she was a sexual abuse survivor, was trying to pursue assistance. She was trying to get help, but she discovered that there's no national legislation, no consistent rules or rights or protections for people who have experienced sexual abuse. So she helped write the Sexual Assault Survivors' Rights Act of 2016. She helped
Mm.
write that. It actually helps with survivors of sexual abuse. They require rape kit procedures at no cost, as well to require the kits to be preserved for 20 years. And so, Asian Americans have contributed significantly to our country. They are not all just the quiet, reserved people that are just going about their business with their head down. They make contributions. And I think people can look into of the history and research all the various ways that Asian Americans have contributed. I think in terms of what I would encourage people to do now, I don't really follow any Asian American literature or authors or anything like that. But there was a recent movie called Minari. I would encourage everyone to watch that. It documents a Korean family that moved to Arkansas, and it's a very realistic movie, and it captures the essence of this Korean experience, Korean Americans, and I would encourage everyone to watch that. It's called Minare. It's like it's Minari. I would encourage everyone to watch that.
Okay. So thanks for sharing. I am not that familiar with the Asian American contribution, and so what you shared was helpful. Um, and I'd like to ask another question. In the last few years, Asian Americans have experienced racism at a higher rate than normal. Have you or your family experienced any racism? If so, please share.
Yes, I could definitely share. I mean, obviously I have been subject to racial slurs, and I think for me, I'm grateful that I haven't been physically assaulted in any way, but slurs, looks, things like that. But I think the one thing I do want to share, which is more at the time it occurred, it didn't really resonate with me what was going on. I knew it was wrong. I knew that what was happening to me was not proper. However, I didn't fully understand the extent. And I look back now and I think, wow, this was truly systematic. And it occurred at my beloved University of Texas, right? That's where I went to
Hmm.
college. I got my undergrad degree there. And two separate instances, I'll share them both. So when I was attending school there, I wanted to take Korean as my language requirement, right? I wanted to take Korean. So I was going to sign up. And back then you can call on the phone. I'd call and they saw that I was of Korean descent, and they said you can't do that. You can't take it. And I remember I was so perplexed because I actually had friends who were of Hispanic descent getting Spanish degrees. I mean, they were getting actual degrees. And I was thinking, and the lady's justification was, well, it wouldn't be fair because you already know how to speak Korean and this and that. And I'm thinking, no. And I remember, I'll never forget. I said, no, I'll offer to take an exam to demonstrate how incompetent I am in Korean. I remember telling her that. She's like, no, no, we can't do that. So I just moved on. I didn't think, okay, that's strange. Then later, actually, when I was in law school at Lubbock at Texas Tech, so I did apply to UT Law School. I didn't get in, obviously. I see now God's plan. He wanted me in Lubbock. But I thought my numbers were okay, were decent. I should be able to get in. I didn't get in. Later in law school at Texas Tech, we are doing a case study on this lawsuit against UT Law School
Hmm.
for discrimination practices in their admissions. So they released, I was just studying in the book, and they had the Asian qualifications higher than anybody else. So there was no way I was going to get into UT Law School because the admission qualifications for Asians was so much higher. And I thought, wow, okay. And at the time, I didn't think of, okay, what it is, But now I look back and I was like, wow, that was discrimination. That was just straight up discrimination because of my race, right? And so those are probably the things I would share. I mean, there's other things that have happened. Strangely enough, I'll share one thing. My wife is Caucasian, and we do have an area here that's a good little mini Koreatown where we live.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it fascinating because when we go there, my wife and I get a lot of stares from Koreans, especially Korean women, and they look at me and they look at my wife, and so I sense something. So it goes both ways. I mean, I've experienced racism from all directions. It doesn't really matter the perpetrator's race, right? So it doesn't discriminate against who it could be. So I am encouraged that you guys are talking about this. I'm encouraged that you guys are shedding light on this because a lot of people don't like to talk about it. I don't. I know my wife has been very helpful. She's even helped me to recognize things because I didn't even realize, oh, is that racism? I didn't, she was like, yeah, what that person said to you, what was she called? She calls it a microaggression. I never heard of that. She said, oh, that was a microaggression. I wasn't even aware because I was like, oh, I thought this is normal. This is what I was used to growing up. He says, no, that's not normal. That's a microaggression. And so she's helped me to recognize, to see that, wow, okay, maybe that was racism. So I appreciate you guys shedding a light on this and having this discussion. I think it's good. I think it's good for people to realize that, yes, even Asians are subject to racism. It might not be the level to other individuals, but racism still exists. And it can be damaging. I mean, it has long-term effects, and it does mess with your psyche, right? I think that's one thing I want to let people know, that people can hold onto things to a certain degree, and they can heal, they can get better, but they're going to be scars. There will be scars, and those scars will always be there. So always, I tell people, one thing I try to encourage people with, and I remind myself, is try to walk in the other person's shoes, try to walk in their shoes for a mile, try to get perspective, see what's going on from their perspective. And that's what helps me. It helps me. And as disciples, we know, right? We know that God sees us. We're all his children, equally his children. And we need to make sure that whatever power, whatever leverage we have within our community, our society, to make sure that everyone is treated like that everyone is treated in a manner how God would want us to be treated, that God sees us as equal children. And so we all have different gifts, we all have different talents, we all have different connections, influences, leverage. We need to use that to make sure that everyone is treated that way. Because for me, it just in my line of work and what I see, I even see bias within my clients, the way the judges might view a certain client, or look at this client because they're from this place. And so I look at that and I think, wow. And it's clear. I mean, I understand everyone has their biases, the judges, immigration officers, but I know I need to make sure that I do my best, that everyone has this equal playing field where they're viewed equally, right? Equally within immigration law.
Okay, well, thanks. What about your children? Because your children are mixed, Claire and Austin. Have they said anything to you? Are they aware of what's going on with Asian Americans and racism?
That's a good question. They haven't really experienced anything. At least they haven't shared anything with me. They haven't. The only time I saw, there was one instance with my daughter. She was with us. She was much younger, and so we don't. She hasn't said anything. Honestly, I'm gonna be. I don't know how to approach them. I don't know. I feel like they haven't said anything. I know that we have a very open dialogue, and so I feel comfortable that they would say something to me. But I asked, how's school going? Anything happened? Any bullies? Anything that would hurt them? So they haven't shared anything. But when I really think about it, I do feel uncomfortable just bringing it up and saying, hey, have anybody made any racial slurs? I don't know. I don't know if I will taint them bringing that up. Will it skew their perception? So they haven't said anything. I know there was a time with my daughter because I was present. My wife was there too. So, but other than that, I am not aware.
Okay. Well, thank you. I love your children, you know. Now, one more question from me is what do you feel our family of churches is doing well, and what do you feel we need to work on
That's a good question.
regarding Asian American relations and
So
diversity?
I can't speak to all the churches. Obviously, I don't know. I can speak to Dallas. I feel like we're growing, we're moving forward. I feel like we've had, I think, diversity training. You probably call that, Karina. We have a committee for diversity, and we're good at bringing in outside speakers. We recently had Michael Burns. He came in, spoke actually multiple times, and that was great. We have Gordon Ferguson in one of the regions. He'll go around and speak to various regions. But I think we need to continue to grow. I'm all about fostering an environment where people feel safe, they feel
Mm-hmm.
encouraged to talk, they know it'll be confidential. I like open dialogue. I don't want people to be reserved. I want them to be able to share everything. And so I think it'll be cool for our churches to continue to have foster an environment where people can talk freely and feel secure and comfortable and know
Mm-hmm.
that there'll be compassion and empathy. So we definitely need to continue to do that. We need to continue to strive to improve and grow. We can always get better. We need to make sure. For me, I want people to feel included in our church, and I think we need to make sure that we find ways for that to happen. Whether you're a successful physician or you're a janitor, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whether you have the highest education or the lowest, I want everyone to be treated equally. I want everyone to feel included. And I think for me, I want to do whatever I can to make that happen.
Amen.
Love hearing
Well,
that.
hey man, what we're going to do right now, I appreciate everything you've shared, and just your heart. It's just evident from what you've communicated. Is just to get a chance to share about what we appreciate about you just over the years, just your heart for the kingdom. So I wanted Karina to go ahead and start. I'll share next, and then Jaime will close us out.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've known you for a long time. You're a faithful man who has persevered through some challenging times. I believe the first time I met you was on the Lubbock mission team. I was going to go to Lubbock, and I went to mission team trainings and I with Nick Young, and I didn't go for another reason. I didn't go to Lubbock, but you went, and I know your parents were in the church, and the church in Dallas went through some hard times with leadership change. And then when the letter came out, and so you've been around a long time, and you have remained faithful. I left Dallas in 2000 to go on the mission team to the Valley, and then eventually I got married, and then we moved back to Dallas, and we ended up settling in Carrollton. And what I remember about you is I don't know how this happened, but my husband ended up staying at your home. He had to move up a few weeks before
Did he
the rest
show
of
his
the family
license? Did he show his license?
I was gonna say, did he show up in the middle of the afternoon saying, "Hey, can I sleep here tonight"?
Oh no, I don't know. But Neil showed up, and y'all had a spare room for him, and then he was there for a few weeks, and then I came because we needed to look for an apartment, and we were looking and looking. And actually, I don't know if you remember, but you gave us a tip. We hadn't found a place, and you said, there's a place right up the road. I think you should go check it out. I think that will work for you. And we went, and we ended up living there. And so you were instrumental in helping us find a place to live. Another thing is that you love and you serve your family. Your dad was a lawyer, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it. My connection was bad, but your mother Sue worked with your dad in his office, and your mother Sue continues to work with you in your office. And I think that's pretty special. Sometimes people have a hard time transitioning from a parent-child role, and you have transitioned really well. It's like you have an adult relationship with your mom, and she works with you, and that says something about you and your character. And also, I know your wife, Leslie, very well. Our kids are around the same age, or your older daughter is about the same age as Samuel. And there are times where I was trying to, playing phone tag with Leslie. Hey, when can we hang out? When can we talk? And then she said, oh, we can't do this night because that's our family night. And it's a time when you have your mother and your sister come over. And I thought, wow, he works with his mom and he still has family time with his mom where they eat together and have a meal. And I thought, he's really dedicated. Like a lawyer is, you're very busy, and yet you still make time for your family and your sister. And I find that very encouraging. And I know that Leslie has also told me that you have some sensitivities. I don't remember the details, with the sun, the heat. And so you have boundaries. And yet, so you have healthy boundaries because you have to take care of your health, but yet you still make a time to encourage and be with your family and do things. And so I admire that you're able to balance taking care of your needs and taking care of the needs of your family. And you're generous with your time. Being a lawyer takes a lot of time, and you invest with your clients, and yet you host Bible talk in your home. I've been to your house for Super Bowl parties, and baby showers and just different events. And you have hosted the In Motion series with your wife Leslie. We haven't done one in a while, but you take time, and that was a commitment of several weeks. I remember years ago, you also hosted an Essential 8. Neil and I were a part of that a couple years ago. And you just make time for people. You and your wife both. I think a couple of weeks ago, your wife organized like Easter baskets, for Easter, and to give to children. And so that was very encouraging. And your wife has helped out with marriage retreat, little gift bags. And so you're both very, committed to the fellowship, to the church, to relationships with people, to people in your Bible talk. And so I really appreciate that. And also, Young, you're a successful man, but I've heard you share about your sin and your wild and rebellious times, and you're open. And that helps you connect with people, and you're real with people. And I really like that, that there's this down to earth quality about you, that where you came from, and that your past is right there, that you deal with it, and that your God has shown a lot of grace to you, and you give that grace to other people. So I'm really glad that I know you, and I've known you all these years, and look forward to spending more time with you and your family.
Amen.
I think for me, I've been wanting to have you on the program for a while now, Young. I think I seen a bunch of your posts on Facebook, and I was like, I gotta get a chance to speak to Young. And finally, I bugged you enough, and you said, this guy's not gonna give up. And here we are today. But I think mostly it's just because of your heart. As Jaime mentioned, I see your posts about the different gifts and the different interactions and so forth that you have with your clients, and just really your heart for them. And I think as a disciple, you do, in a good way, bring your work home, and you do care about the individuals, regardless of what they taught you in law school, to not, get quote too involved in a sense. And I appreciate that about you. I also think in the last few years, it's something you've, I think, always had, but I think it's become more highlighted, which is just a concern that, everyone should be treated equal. I think that is something very evident in just how you work and how you interact, with everyone. And the last thing I just wanted to share is the fun that you have with your kids. Whether it's your son, I don't know if he had a touchdown, I can't remember what it was, and it seems like you were more excited than him. And you have just a really cool sense of humor, and you're just a great family man. So I just wanted to share that. And I think as we are able to travel more, I'm looking forward to either visiting Texas, but definitely seeing you at a conference and just getting a chance to laugh and hang out. So, amen.
Absolutely.
Hi,
Toma, there was something else I forgot to mention. Another thing I admire about you, Young, is your diplomacy. and your courage, because you post things on Facebook where you take a stand, you take a position on something, right? Regarding whatever. And then people sometimes disagree with you. And yet you maintain civility and respect and gentleness, and I appreciate that about you and your wife. And so sometimes I'm hesitant to I post things on Facebook, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of reaction. And so I sometimes just lurk. But you take a stand and you write things and you say things that come from your heart, and you have a way to do that that's very I find it very admirable, and then how you interact with the people who respond to you. And I want to learn to imitate that, learn how to be righteous and gentle, and to be confident.
Thank you.
So, try to get this without being too emotional, Young. Okay, because I'll admit, like being here with you, it's really a dream I didn't know I wanted. If that makes sense. And so being able to be on a YouTube video with you, a spiritual hero of mine, and owing so much to you, like Joe is the guy who not just discipled, he baptized me, he discipled me, he trained me, um, and Cheska, his wife now, she did the same for my wife, Dakisa. And Dakisa, Joe he officiated our wedding. You know what I mean? And so, but man, I've shared everything I've shared already, and it's hard to look at the time and be like, oh, this is almost done. This show is about to be over. And Young, let me just say thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for being humble and having humility, man. Because of you doing that, like there's been generations of people in Lubbock who have benefited from your humility, and will continue benefiting. Had it not been for you, Dakisa wouldn't have been there, and I wouldn't have met her. We wouldn't have gotten married. Wouldn't have had our kids. And so I loved you before without knowing you as deeply, you know. And now that I do see more of your work and your character online, I love you even more than before. I love you because you're not just this myth or this legend that people talked about in Lubbock. You're the real deal. You are an amazing man. And, I remember when you offered, I remember when I had an uncle who passed away in Lubbock, and it was killing me that I couldn't get there. And you had offered to help me get there. And I was just like, oh, man, that was you just offering to help me. And that was amazing. But I see the work and the effort that you do now. I would be great friends with your wife because she's a therapist. My wife's a therapist. But you, I feel like I would love to be a soldier with you next to you, have your back and everything like that, man. I would love to, if we lived closer together, I would want to make sure that you and I were in studies often together because you have a story to tell, and man. So I just want to say how much I love you, how much I appreciate you, and how much I continue to see your example. I want you to keep sharing because it inspires us. It inspires me. I look at you and I think about what more can I do. I may not be a lawyer, but I need to figure out something. I can read a book. I can open up. I can say something.
You could start a YouTube channel.
I tell your story to so many people that I meet, Young. So many people. There's not been a person who I have not discipled who has not heard your story. So I don't know what else I can say to kind of top that kind of stuff, man. But I love you and I appreciate what you've done. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Well, you guys are doing great. I just want to say you're doing great. Latoya, you're doing an awesome job. Karina, I really do want you to recognize what you guys are doing. I mean, with your channels, with your videos. So don't ever lose sight of that. Don't ever lose sight of the impact you guys are having. Trust me, I
We're
see
not
from
done yet.
afar. Okay,
I,
okay,
I thank you for that. I appreciate that. We're not done yet. Jaime's
okay,
got some getting to know you questions. We're going to run through really quickly and we'll wrap it up.
Yes. Yes.
okay.
All right. So here we go. Question one. What's your favorite food?
Wow. So I had to. Well, I like Korean, Italian, and Brazilian steak. But if I was forced, it would be Korean.
Okay. All right. Specific favorite dish?
I just like Korean steak, like Korean beef, barbecue.
Okay.
But I like it all. But my favorite would be Korean barbecue.
Okay. All right. Do you have a favorite film or a TV
Wow,
series?
wow. Yes, so I'm not a big TV film person, but this will rock your world. I mean, so you remember Eric Maldonado, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we were on the Lubbock mission team, Matrix came out,
Mhm.
and that's the only movie I ever went to the theater, and then right after I watched it, I went back immediately and just watched it again. And both Eric and I were just blown away. And I remember, I think we went to IHOP after, and we just were just, I don't know, it was like a spiritual experience. It was just a very interesting experience. So I would have to say Matrix because I've never ever watched a movie in the theater and then immediately paid another ticket and watched it again. And so I would say Matrix.
That's a
All
great
right.
movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah, I need to talk to Eric about that and see how much he remembers of that night.
Yeah. You know he's in China now, right? He's in China. He's
Yeah,
got two
yeah,
boys. So
Yeah.
yeah. I
yeah.
see that.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us about your morning routine.
So it's not anything. I guess the biggest thing that would be different is I'm not a breakfast person, and so I don't eat breakfast. And honestly, I'm not a morning. I don't think I really turn on. I don't think my light goes off until after lunch. So mornings can be a blur. I'm just gonna be honest. So um, I feel like I am more of a night person. I don't know what it is, but I just after lunch in the afternoon
That's
and
when you
then
really
into the
wake up,
evening,
right?
yeah, it's very interesting to me. And so I don't know why there's some people that are really more than telling me, oh, they get up at 4 or 5 and they go run and do all this stuff. And I'm like, really? That just seems not me.
No, I'm
Okay.
with you. I'm with you, brother. My wife is that way. My wife is the one who can wake up early and do all that, but I'm with you. I'm like, before 12 o'clock, I don't know what's going on. All right. What do you prefer, a paper Bible or a digital Bible?
I'm definitely paper. I like paper, even with documents now. It's so much, well, obviously now with technology, everything is electronic and people are sending me all these documents for work. But I still like paper. I prefer paper. So I'm definitely paper Bible person.
Okay, cool. Uh, what's your favorite book of the Bible right now?
Well, it's always well. I'm reading Matthew, but my favorite book is Philippians. I think it's always
Mhm.
Philippians. I mean, it might have been something else before, but like I would say within the recent time, Philippians. As far back as I can remember, it's always been Philippians.
Okay.
Mhm.
Who's your favorite Bible character?
It's Paul, and the reason is he has, he talks about a thorn in his side, and to keep him humble. And I have a thorn in my side, which is my health, but I'm grateful. I feel like if God didn't, I say God humbled me, He struck me down with my health, I would not be here. I would not be a disciple. I don't know if I'd be alive. Who knows where I would be, right? And so I'm grateful. I've prayed obviously to remove this thorn, please, but I look back and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the thorn in my side. It's something I have to deal with, but it keeps me in check. It keeps me humble and also helps me to see I have to rely on God. I have to pray and I have to be constantly not just I pray in the morning I'm done. No, I gotta pray throughout the day. I gotta pray at work. I gotta pray before I go to court. I gotta pray just constantly. And so I know with that thorn in my side, it helps me. And so definitely Paul.
Amen. Um, outside the Bible, do you have a favorite book or an author?
No, I don't have a favorite book or author, but there's this book I want everyone to read if you want to learn more about immigration. And I don't know if I can get this right here.
Out of Many, One
Yeah,
by George
it's a
Bush.
book that, yeah, George Bush. It's it's not just paintings. So it's actually stories and details about immigrants, but also about the history, facts about immigration. It gives outline, kind of general outline about immigration, but it's a great book. It's not just these paintings and portraits. They're great, but it also features different immigrants. And one of my former clients is in there, but it's not just for that. It's more just to learn about immigration, to learn about the impact and contributions that immigrants have made. And I think also it's, George W. is a Republican, right? And so you would think, okay, how is he going to write about immigration? And so it's good to see that from this conservative, that there is this true value in immigration that is recognized even from the right. And so it's a great book. And I would encourage everyone to get it, read it. Like I said, it has a great facts, lots of just information on immigration.
Amen. All right. I'm sure you'll get that written down so we can share it with everyone. What's your favorite place to live?
Yeah, I was struggling with, I don't, if I was forced, like if someone said you're forced to pick, I would probably say San Diego because of the weather. And I do like the beach, but I like the 70 degrees. We visited there during different times of the year, whether it's summer, winter, spring, fall, and it seems to be pretty moderate and consistent. So that if I was forced, where would you want to live? I would say probably San Diego.
Okay. You mentioned having aversions to the sunlight and stuff like that, right?
So, well, the heat. So the sun,
Heat.
yeah, so extreme, like once it gets to, above 80, I can't be out too long in the heat. I mean, I could probably, once it gets to like 85, 90, I could probably be out like 30 minutes or so. Once it gets above 90, 30, I can't be out more than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of my past, right? That's part of how God had to wake me up because of all the abuse that I did to myself. One thing I'll just share, when I was getting all those tests done, they did an MRI on my brain. And this was before I became a disciple. The doctor, the first thing he asked was, "Do you do drugs?" And I'm like, "What in the world?" Or "Have you done drugs?" And I'm like, "What kind of?" And I said, "Yeah, in the past." And this is what I did. And he said, "Well, you're not receiving a sufficient amount of blood to your head because of all that." So I later discovered I had a blood flow issue. Yeah. And so there's certain things I have to be careful with, right? And so I've learned over the years what I can and can't do and what I need to do to maintain. But that's one of the thorns in my side. And I understand and recognize that that's how God has helped me. He helped me in that way so I would surrender to him. So.
Amen. Where do you most want to visit?
Well, one place I'd like to visit is Switzerland. I've never been to Switzerland. I've been very close around the country, but never actually into the country of Switzerland.
Are you Team Apple or Team Android?
That's funny because I would say with probably 5 or 6 years ago, I was still using a BlackBerry. I would say 5 or 6 years ago, I was using a BlackBerry, but it finally just broke, and I was like, oh man, I love the keyboard, that style keyboard.
Yes.
So I went to my Best Buy by my office, and I said my phone broke. I need to get a new phone, and they had the Samsung Galaxy. I think it was like $1. And so I said, okay, I'm finally gonna just do this. I'm not gonna look for another BlackBerry. Let me just do this. So I got that Samsung, and I liked it much better than. I had an iPad, so I knew about the iPad. I had that for a while, but then when I got the Samsung, then I just was hooked with Android. So I like the Android much better than the iPad.
What are some of your favorite apps?
I like Bleacher Report, Spotify. Bleacher Report's all about sports. Spotify, YouTube, Facebook. I think that's about it. I don't know what other apps. I'm not a big technology person, so you guys are probably thinking there's 20 other apps that are better than that. So I don't know.
That's okay.
I mean, you guys are obviously great on technology. I mean, I've never even heard of this StreamYard before.
It's what all the cool kids are using these days.
I'm still using Zoom, so.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the program. I think it's great to just, as we have been able to witness just your heart, through all of this, your openness, as Karina shared about. which I think we all need even as we get older.
Yep.
So, I think definitely as time goes on, I think there's going to be more and more just an emphasis on really just treating everyone as equal, and prayerfully, we'll see the day where that becomes more and more of a reality. And I think you're at the gateway of really just reviewing and helping people to come to America, in just situations. And like I said, I think for me, it would just lead me to appreciate America more and more, and just what we already have. So I appreciate your work, appreciate your heart. Definitely keep dancing on your Facebook videos, and keep having fun with the family. And hopefully we'll have a conference soon, and we'll get a chance to laugh and just have some great fun. So thank you again, Karina and Jaime, for assisting with the program. Those of you that got something out of the program, please consider subscribing, and also ring the bell. That way you'll know when more videos come out from the program. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye.